That takes us to the Audit Committee report.
As I indicated earlier, I asked the district auditor to perform a desk review of the available information provided by the parents. He presented a preliminary analysis to facilitate our discussion. Based on the evidence sheet provided by the parents and the preliminary analysis, the audit committee concluded that an audit is warranted and that we unanimously agreed that the scope should include: number one, determining the intent, the reason, and the impact of any TDEs that have been altered. Number two, determining if employee benefits for Mr. Hernandez, which is the assigned vehicle, cell phone, SunPass, are properly captured and reported to the IRS. Number three, assessing if Mr. Hernandez complied with district policy in maintaining his vehicle log and documents. Number four, determine if the leaves taken by Mr. Hernandez complied with the district's leave policies, specifically working for Memphis schools during sick leave days. The recording of leave days was based on the TDEs. And the last item is determining if the district record retention guideline was adhered to for employee access cards and calendars. Thank you.
Do you need to review what the parents asked for in terms of additional submissions or enlarging the scope?
Yes, initially the documents were given to Mr. Chu on November 2nd, and then I had a subsequent conversation with Christina Howley and asked her to get all her documents and records in, anything that she had. And after we had concluded the meeting, Mr. Kimball gave me 13 more documents, which I gave to Mr. Chu. All of these documents would be included and given to the firm. Otherwise, we would be considered limiting their scope. We cannot do that. They would not sign a report. They couldn't do it. Okay. And they would have to withdraw if we decided to do that. The point is that we really believe there are more documents and records. For example, Mr. Moore had advised us that, in fact, some of those days that were in question, Mr. Hernandez had not been paid for, but they're not open to the public, but they will be open to an audit firm. And so once we review with the firm what needs to be done, they will decide what records that they have. We would not withhold any records at all under any circumstances.
Are you able to give us any kind of a dollar estimate on the cost of this independent audit?
It's significant. So we will bring the estimate of a fee back to you, and you all will decide.
And I understand your hesitance to do so, but I mean, are we talking $10,000, $100,000, or more?
I'm not really sure, because honestly, I think we need to go back and further refine the scope based on apparently additional documents that have been provided, and so I don't know. I have no idea.
And Mr. Chair, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but the reason I ask this, and I want to bring it up at the right time, but I know one of our options is to come under the purview of the Inspector General, and if we were already under her jurisdiction, this would have been covered. So I want to discuss that, and I don't know if now's the right time or if I should bring that up at another time.
If you want to take your discussion item out of order, the board can make a motion to that effect. There needs to be a second and then an affirmative vote.
Well, Mrs. Brown, let me ask you a question. Are you suggesting that we could turn this particular one item over to the Inspector General without the board formally, adopting a policy to submit ourselves to the district, to the Inspector General? Is that a possibility? I don't even know what the Inspector...
Sorry, it's not. I spoke with Ms. Steckler today, who is the Inspector General, to ask her about my discussion item, but then specifically also to ask that if we were under the jurisdiction of the Inspector General, would this be something that she could investigate for us? And she explained that while the Ethics Commission is prospective only, so that once you come under the jurisdiction of the Ethics Commission, they will only look at matters from that day forward. The Inspector General will look at anything that's within the statute of limitations, and this clearly is. So then I asked her, well, if we were to be able to negotiate terms such that we came under your jurisdiction, when would you see that happening? She's just now had an election and has, got a lot of municipalities, and she's doing a lot of hiring. Because of that, she was hopeful that we wouldn't, although we might reach terms in short order, she wouldn't begin to do work for us until June 1st of 2011. That said, she said that she thought that she ought to be able to work out a special contract or a special provision so that this particular investigation would be done now. And the only reason I raise it is someone threw out to me a number in the order of $300,000 to do this independent audit. I have no idea if that's a real number, but if it is, then it may be worth us, if we are going indeed to come under the purview of the Inspector General, it may be worth letting her do this. So it was something that I wanted to raise as an...
The P-card audit was about $25,000.
Okay. As I sit and listen to you, Mrs. Adair, it sounds like the issues that you are bringing up are all focused on the conduct of Jeffrey Hernandez. And,
yes, we're aware that they. Go ahead.
Well, it strikes me he's no longer an employee. We can't terminate him. He's gone. I'm interested in a report if it helps us identify policies or procedures so that we can correct this kind of behavior from happening again, or if it identifies misconduct on the part of the employee's supervisor, the superintendent. I don't want to pay school district monies to find out what Jeffrey Hernandez did. And a week ago, I asked for and received a copy of the file on the Suncoast ban issue. And that whole file started with an audit committee report. Mm-hmm. And it was a great report, and it was really helpful for me to review. And in it, it not only looked at the conduct of Ernest Brown, but of the conduct of his supervisor, Gloria Crutchfield. And that's the kind of report I would hope that we would get from the audit committee, this independent auditor, would look at not only the conduct of the employee, but of his supervisor.
We could add in an item whether or not there was a violation. I don't know what your policy is regarding supervision of employees. So we would have to look at that, number one. And number two, in the event when the report comes back, if there are policies that need to be changed or corrected regarding anything, then the audit committee would discuss it and we would bring forth our policy change recommendations to you. So that I think one of the board members mentioned we needed to change a policy because we were almost always in violation of it. It had to do with signatures before or after sick dates, I think, which need to be addressed. So at that time, wherever we see the problem issues, we would then discuss the policies that might need to be changed, and then we would bring them forward to you and identify them for you all so that you all could discuss them and then decide if you want to change those policies.
I just say in concept, I'm right with Mrs. Brown. Jeffrey Hernandez is, history, the degree that he would have to cooperate, with an audit is questionable at best. And, we could end up in a liable situation, in reverse where he's concerned, should we go down that road? I think it's much more important to focus and for Mrs. Adair to focus, on our current staff.
I concur with Dr. Benaim, and I think part of the issue is we have the opportunity when the proposal comes to us to engage this auditor to set that scope. So it gives us the flexibility to ensure that we're getting the information that we need.
We don't normally scope things in public. They're usually done based on the auditor's judgment. But because this is going to be, you can't do an audit of this because it's not a financial statement. So therefore, it has to be agreed upon procedures, which is why we try to tell them what procedures we want them to perform. And then we can also ask them if they have recommendations for policy changes, or we can just discuss at our committee if we feel that, we would be constantly in violation of some policy anyway. So.
Well, I'll move that the audit committee proceed with its planned hiring of an outside firm, and certainly I feel confident that the session was objective that most of us witnessed the other day. But I make a motion that they go ahead and proceed with their planned audit with the outside firm.
Dr. Mayor, you mean hiring or negotiating a price and bringing it back to us first?
It depends on the price. Okay, so I guess yes, bring it back.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I think one of the issues that we're going to face as we go through this, and this may be a question for the attorney, is that not only are we looking at collecting the information through the auditing firm, but we also have some real significant personnel issues that will be part of this entire investigation. And I think we need some advice to make sure that the procedures and policies that the district has in place to ensure the protection for employees as well as the authority of the board are there, because ultimately we're going to be making decisions, and it's important for us to be in a position where we're getting some advice on the personnel end of this also.
All in favor of Dr. Benhame's motion as amended by Mrs. Brill's amendment?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Mr. Barbieri, may I make a brief comment?
Yes, sir.
This is not intended in any way to be gratuitous. I and the staff will work openly and completely with the audit company that is chosen to resolve this thing to everybody's satisfaction, and especially those individuals who have been most persistent and most concerned about it, because there is nothing that is more distracting to this system than these type of events. And having been involved in them at both ends for a number of years, I can appreciate the concern that all of us have. So again, I will pledge to you that we'll be open and very diligent in getting this resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.